All right, let's get into it. So, on today's episode, I want to talk about the one thing that sets Invincible apart from every other superhero show. And this is going to be something that's very, very interesting. So, let's get into it. So, Invincible, as you guys know, is a show about young Mark Grayson, who is essentially the son of a Superman-like character who later on discovers he has powers. And from this new discovery, he embarks on his own journey to become his own superhero in a way. And he sort of faces the struggles of whether or not he's going to be more like his father or, be his own different kind of superhero. And that is where the spoilers will end. So if you have not seen Invincible, if you have not watched it, I highly recommend checking out Season 1, Season 2, and 3. Now, this video is being recorded before Season 3 is out. So, again, I don't know the quality of Season 3 yet, but given the track record of the last two seasons, I would recommend at least giving the first few episodes a watch. Now, if for whatever reason you're still curious about Season 3, I will be covering it on this channel, so feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be covering some reactions from the episodes and potentially some reviews as well, depending on what you guys think and what the audience is demanding. So anyways, let's get into the video. So in this video, I want to talk about what Invincible does so well that a lot of shows just don't, right? And I think for me, it's execution on themes. Invincible is really good at picking very strong themes. That's one thing, but one thing it does incredibly well is execute on those themes. And execution is almost everything when it comes to a TV show, movie, any form of media, right? Because if you can't at least reach a certain bar of execution, then it's hard to get your message across, whatever that message might be. So in this case, the themes that Invincible selects throughout its seasons, really, seasons 1 and 2, are fairly strong. I think the strongest ones we do tend to see are around season 1, but it's still that same thing where it does such a really good job of executing on the different themes that are within the show. So let me get started first with what is a theme? What do I mean by a theme or something thematic within a show? To me, a theme is essentially a through line or thread that connects multiple different elements within a show and is typically related to some sort of a phrase or theme, as you could say, right? So oftentimes, you will have themes that are surrounding different subjects. For example, redemptive themes, themes of revenge, right? Now, revenge and redemption, I wouldn't consider a theme in and of themselves. But typically, a theme is sort of like branching off from whatever that word might be. So let's give revenge as an example, right? Revenge is an idea, right? Which is someone does something wrong to you, you do something back to them. It's the eye for an eye, right? Now, themes explore the idea of revenge. So one theme could be revenge is awesome, right? That could be the theme. It's almost never the theme for anything ever, but it can actually be the theme. Or even better theme might be, is revenge awesome? And just that one word changes the theme entirely, because you can start exploring a series where a character thinks that revenge is the right thing to do, but also that it will be enjoyable. And as he continues to get revenge, he starts to realize that it actually isn't. And there you go, an idea for a great show, book, whatever it is that you're looking to do. But the key thing here is simple, that the theme itself is so important because it undergirds the actual story in a way that almost nothing else can. And ultimately, because of this, themes are really, really essential. And sometimes what can make or break a show is the simple selection of the theme. With that said, Invincible in particular, again, selects some really strong, powerful themes that are typically universal and that really resonate a lot. And we'll get to that soon. But I want to cover one more thing about a theme. So themes typically come, I believe, in two forms. You have your hidden themes, which are themes that you can kind of see connected throughout the story, but you don't necessarily, you can argue whether or not they're there. And then there are sort of overt themes, which are basically themes that were like, basically thought up at the writing table. The people sat down and they're like, look, whatever we do, we have to make sure that this theme is communicated or connected with or explored at some point within the show. And they would have written it down potentially. And that would be sort of an overt theme. Now, hidden themes can be like this too, but just like that, they're hidden. They need to be discovered. And oftentimes it takes watching channels like this or others to kind of see themes that were there and that the creators were waiting for you to find, or that the creators didn't even realize they were thinking up when creating their show, which is actually what makes themes and even just the aspect of creating stories very, very interesting. Because again, they sort of evolve on their own and create voices of their own and speak in ways that you don't even expect. So again, we got your themes, your hidden and your overt themes. So that's sort of what I'm defining here when I'm going into this video and talking about the different themes. And now I want to get into one of the strongest themes inside of Invincible in general. So the category, I guess, or topic of theme here would be sort of the idea and aspects surrounding fatherhood. Fatherhood itself plays a big role within most people's lives and within this series itself. And what sets and truly sets Invincible apart, I would say, is that it tackles this angle head on. A lot of different shows that you see, especially superhero shows, tend not to focus too much on familiar relationships because, I mean, oftentimes that you're dealing with a superhero where their father's dead or their father figure's dead or their parents got shot or whatever the case might be. So you don't tend to have those family dynamics to begin with in a lot of them. On top of that, the fatherhood dynamics aren't really worked with because of the fact that you might not have present family members in the character's life. Not necessarily dead in this case, but those family members may not be very involved within the story. At least not as intricately involved as Omni-Man is with Mark Grayson. And the reason for this, again, is because of the fact that Mark and Omni-Man are both superheroes. They're both in the business. So again, you have this thing of both two characters doing business together, working together, and those things are hard to capture in different stories. Batman stories kind of get into it slightly with the whole Robin situations, I should say, but I don't think they quite capture the reality of fatherhood the way Invincible does in an amazing way. And then what's also cool is Invincible tends to drill down specifically on that special connection between a father and son, which sort of takes that even further. It's really incredible. I think it's a really great series to watch with a parent, right, with your father. So and that in of itself is just a really cool thing because it breaks the mold and breaks barriers in ways a lot of shows tend not to. Now, in particular, the strongest theme surrounding fatherhood that I've noticed from the show, that theme in particular, and I would call this one a hidden theme. I don't know if this was what Robert and the gang were cooking up when they were writing it down, but it just seeps throughout the entire show, specifically season 1. And I mean, season 1 basically is the season that brought everyone along to the show, right? Everyone along for the ride. Now, this theme in particular is how far a father will go to protect his son. This is a very interesting theme. It's again hidden. It's not really spoken of by any of the characters. And again, oftentimes some themes are actually spoken verbatim by certain characters. And what's interesting here is throughout the show, you'll notice that Omni-Man is constantly watching Mark. He's kind of like a helicopter dad where he's just hovering, looking and seeing what Mark is doing while he's being a superhero. His very first time fighting anyone, it was the fight with him and Titan. He goes and he fights Titan and he sort of wins, but messes everything up. Who's there looking out for him? His dad. But what's interesting is he doesn't intervene at all. He steps away, he lays back and he just watches his son. And not only does he watch his son, but he takes the time to allow his son to make mistakes. And those things are very, very interesting because typically the helicopter parent is the one who's always hovering around and does not allow their children to actually explore themselves. And what's interesting here about Omni-Man and what he's doing, and you don't know it at first if it's your first time watching, but if it's your second time watching, you start to realize he's watching his son to see if his son can actually handle himself, to see if his son can actually take care of himself, to see if his son can be a Vitramite. When he's training him earlier on the show and he punches him, he's again testing his son to see if he can actually hold his own. And this entire time, what he constantly is doing throughout season 1 is essentially preparing his son for his calling, preparing his son for what he's eventually going to have to face. And he does this often throughout the series. Now, another thing that is very clear in terms of what he does is, as a parent, Omni-Man in particular, he's doing these weird actions. You do not understand at all why he's doing them until you start to realize again that he's protecting his son. So in the very first episode, you know what it is, that very first epic fight with the Guardians of the Globe, you don't realize why he's doing what he's doing. You don't realize why he's killing all these folks. And if you watch through the entire season, you kind of realize it, but not really. The show doesn't necessarily tell you straight up why he's doing what he's doing. But what's interesting is it turns out that there's 2 reasons that Omni-Man would have taken them out. The first is that he felt that the Guardians were a threat to him taking over the world with his son. And second, he wanted to protect his son from being defeated by the Guardians. I think, in fact, that when he saw his son in action, he realized that he had no chance at facing off against any of the Guardians. And because of that, he took them out so that they were not even a problem for him or a problem for them when the time came for them to do their thing and take over the world. And again, this is very, very interesting. And in season 2, it kind of dives into some of this a little bit deeper as well, just in terms of this aspect of Omni-Man always looking out for Mark, but also being prepared to take care of him and protect him at any cost. There's when meets his father again for the first time in season 2, and they have that conversation, and he starts to realize how much of a big deal the Vitramites are and how dangerous they are and what all of that even means. So again, it's really, really interesting because throughout the show, all you see is Omni-Man trying to protect his son. When he goes to that other alien planet in the middle of season 1, and he just absolutely wrecks and destroys everyone on that planet, the reason why he does this again is because he's protecting his son. He even says Earth is his to conquer. That's what he says outwardly. But I believe that inwardly, part of the reason why he went as hard as he did on those aliens is because of the interactions with his son and what was going on with those different battles, and how he wanted to make sure that Earth was his and that he could take Earth with his son. So again, that alien scene is a big example of him preparing his son. And then finally, the Vitramites and how he continues to want to protect his son even against them, to the point where he's actually willing to beat his son to a pulp and fight him tooth and nail, not to kill him, because he knew that at any point he could kill him, but he was trying to convince his son of what was ahead, of the Vitramites, because he knew that if his son didn't fall in line with the Empire, that his son would die. So it's this interesting thing where the entire time he's doing these absolutely crazy, radical things, but ultimately what he's actually doing is doing whatever he can to protect his son. It's a bit overt, it's a bit extreme, but it's a great illustration of what that might look like and the lengths in which someone would go to help their son grow into who they need to be and ultimately help to protect their son. And I think that's why season 1 really sets things apart, season 2 as well, just in terms of that aspect of how well this theme is explored, the number of times it continues to connect, and sort of the deeper and better executed a theme is, the more you see it play out in multiple scenes. I encourage you to rewatch, the first season, first 2 seasons, and look at it from this perspective of how many of Omni-Man's actions are actually done in order to protect Mark, or to train up Mark, or to build him up. How many of his actions are based upon that? And when you really start to realize that that's the case, it's again a really interesting dynamic. And I think what's wonderful about it is you're able to learn just as much from the villain as you are maybe from the hero. To give an example, when Omni-Man is doing his helicopter parenting and watching, part of that's key is that he does allow Mark to actually make mistakes. And in doing that, Mark does get better and he does get stronger throughout the season. Now, if for example, he was an actual helicopter parent and he came and saved Mark each and every single time and stopped Mark from learning from all the different mistakes he was dealing with, if it had actually happened, Mark would have been worse off for it. And that's a lesson in fatherhood at times, where there's this aspect of parenting your children where you kind of have to let them make their own mistakes at times. You kind of have to just be there, still watching in case things go out of hand, but allowing for them to go through whatever challenges they might need to face and whatever challenges they might need to go through. So again, to me, masterful job of executing on the themes. And when you execute on a theme very, very well, what happens is you got lessons for days. Again, lessons for days. And that's my episode today on Invincible, on how it executes the fatherhood themes. So this is me signing off. If you like the video, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm Lex, and remember, there's no such thing as entertainment.